It was meant to be a moment of triumph for diplomacy, the end to months of bloodshed and tension. When former US President Donald Trump presided over the signing of a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia in Malaysia this October, the event was heralded as a symbol of restored peace in Southeast Asia. Trump, who had publicly threatened to suspend trade privileges for both nations if hostilities continued, proudly claimed credit for bringing two bitter rivals to the table. For a brief moment, there was hope that the border, scarred by history, littered with landmines and soaked in mistrust, might finally find calm. But just weeks later, that optimism has been replaced by renewed gunfire, accusations, and tragedy. The so-called Trump-brokered peace has fallen apart almost as quickly as it began, exposing the fragility of truces built on shaky political ground. The collapse of the ceasefire came after a grim incident on Monday that reignited long-simmering tensions. A Thai soldier patrolling a section of the disputed border stepped on a landmine and lost his foot in the explosion. Within hours, Thai officials accused Cambodia of laying the mine recently and deliberately, calling it a direct violation of the ceasefire's terms. The incident triggered a furious response from Bangkok, with Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul declaring that the peace deal is now over. Thailand's military command announced it was suspending all cooperative measures agreed under the truce. For many observers, this marked the beginning of a dangerous slide back into the same hostilities the peace deal was meant to end. Cambodia, meanwhile, rejected the accusations, stating that the area had long been contaminated by mines dating back to previous conflicts, and accused Thailand of politicizing an unfortunate accident. The situation quickly spiraled. 2 days later, border officials reported gunfire near Thailand's Say Keo province and Cambodia's Banteay Meanchey province. Witnesses described an exchange of small arms fire lasting 15 minutes, followed by a tense standoff. The Thai Army's spokesperson, Winthai Suvari, claimed that Cambodian troops had fired shots into Thai territory, while Cambodia insisted that it was merely responding to provocations from the Thai side. On the ground, civilians bore the brunt of the renewed violence. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet confirmed that 3 civilians had been injured and 1 killed in Prey Chan, a village in northwestern Cambodia. The action goes against the humanitarian spirit and recent agreements to resolve border issues peacefully, he said in a statement. The border region, which had just begun to recover from the previous round of fighting, once again descended into fear and chaos. For those living along the frontier, this new wave of conflict has reopened old wounds. Residents on both sides of the border described scenes of panic and displacement. Hul Malis, a Cambodian woman from Prey Chan, told reporters that the shooting began suddenly and without provocation. "They just shot at us. We did nothing," she said while packing belongings to flee her home. Her husband, Thong Kim Lang, added that Thai soldiers fired a lot of shots and that villagers were running for their lives. On the Thai side, several border hamlets in Sa Kaeo province were evacuated amid fears of escalation. Humanitarian agencies estimate that hundreds of civilians have fled their homes again, joining the 300,000 who were displaced earlier this year during July's clashes, the worst border fighting in a decade. What began as a symbolic political fallout has once again become a humanitarian disaster for the people trapped between the two armies. The border dispute itself runs deep, tracing back more than a century to the colonial era. In the early 1900s, French colonial cartographers drew maps defining Cambodia's territorial boundaries, but Thailand, then Siam, rejected their accuracy, arguing they unfairly ceded land to French-controlled Cambodia. At the heart of the conflict lies the ownership of several ancient temple complexes, including the Preah Vihear and Tamon temples, both of which hold immense cultural and national significance. In 1962, the International Court of Justice ruled in favor of Cambodia's claim to Preah Vihear, but the surrounding areas remained in dispute. Over the years, both nations have constructed roads, built outposts, and stationed troops near these sacred sites, each accusing the other of violating sovereignty. Every few years, the smoldering tensions reignite, often triggered by local incidents, nationalist politics, or attempts to assert control over contested territory. The Trump-brokered ceasefire in October was supposed to change that. The agreement, signed in Malaysia under U.S. mediation, followed 5 days of intense fighting in July that left 43 people dead and forced hundreds of thousands to flee. Trump portrayed the deal as a hallmark of his peace diplomacy, calling it proof that America can bring stability even where history says it's impossible. Under the agreement, both nations committed to halting border patrols in sensitive areas and to establishing a joint commission to review disputed maps with international observers. Yet critics warned from the outset that the deal was rushed and overly dependent on U.S. pressure rather than genuine regional consensus. The agreement was more about optics than substance, one Southeast Asia analyst noted at the time. It didn't resolve the root causes, it simply froze them. Those warnings have now proven prescient. The first landmine blast shattered the illusion of stability and sent both militaries scrambling back into defensive positions. Political dynamics in both capitals have also played a role in the breakdown. In Bangkok, Prime Minister Anutin faces growing pressure from nationalist groups who see compromise with Cambodia as weakness. The image of a wounded Thai soldier only strengthened hardline calls for retaliation. Even though the Foreign Ministry later clarified that Thailand had paused, not terminated, the peace deal, the message to the domestic audience, was clear. Thailand would not be seen as backing down. Meanwhile, in Phnom Penh, Hun Manet, who succeeded his father Hun Sen, is navigating his own legitimacy challenges and must project strength to maintain authority. Accusations from Thai officials that Cambodia violated the ceasefire have been dismissed as baseless, with Hun Manet insisting that Cambodia will defend its sovereignty at all costs. In both countries, domestic politics and national pride have overshadowed diplomacy, turning the border into a stage for political theater as much as a line of conflict. Beyond the immediate violence, the failure of the ceasefire has exposed broader regional and geopolitical fault lines. The United States, which touted the deal as a model for resolving regional conflicts, now faces questions about the durability of its diplomatic interventions in Asia. The breakdown also provides an opening for China to expand its influence in Cambodia, where Beijing already has strong economic and military ties. Analysts warn that the more the US-backed deal falters, the deeper Cambodia might drift into China's orbit, a strategic setback for Washington's Indo-Pacific ambitions. For Thailand, which maintains closer ties to the US, the situation is equally complex. Prolonged instability on its eastern frontier could strain its military resources and economic relations, particularly as trade and tourism routes between the two countries become disrupted once again. In the end, what began as a border skirmish has spiraled into a crisis with implications far beyond Southeast Asia. As the smoke rises over the jungles dividing Thailand and Cambodia, one lesson stands painfully clear. Peace, built on political convenience, rarely lasts. The Trump-brokered deal, hailed just weeks ago as a symbol of American diplomacy, now stands as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even well-publicized truces can unravel when old grievances remain unresolved. The landmine blast that reignited this conflict was not just an accident of war, it was the detonation of decades of mistrust. Both sides face a choice: to continue down the path of blame and militarization, or to return to dialogue with genuine intent. The people living along the border, displaced and forgotten, deserve more than fleeting promises of peace. They deserve a settlement rooted not in foreign photo ops, but in shared history, mutual respect, and the hard work of reconciliation. Until that happens, the border will remain what it has long been, a fragile fault line where history bleeds into the present.